eventually we signed with Cooking Vinyl, who were able to get an advance from a Japanese company called Pony Canyon, who sent us enough money to make a pretty good album. Now, there's an awful lot of things that happened between getting that money, booking the studios, and actually finishing the record. And it was that basic 6-month period, everything went wrong from the time the money arrived until the day I left. Just everything went wrong. It would take an hour to tell you everything that went wrong. Anyway, the pressure again started to mount. Andy was getting very, very frustrated. And he started lashing out, or at least what I considered him to be lashing out at us for kind of putting obstacles in the way of the progress of this record, not working hard enough, not any problem. It was, it was our fault for not working hard enough. And he came down. We were in Chipping Norton Studios, I remember, in early months of '98. And he sat down and gave us this stern lecture, which actually poisoned the atmosphere for everybody, because it wasn't just Colin and me. Prairie was there, Hayden Bendel, the producer, Barry, the engineer. We were all in, being criticised and lambasted perfectly unfairly, in my view, and I still say he was wrong to have done that. And that kind of created a smell that never went away. Then Andy decided he was going to. The sessions kind of limped on. He kept, criticising Prairie's drum work. He said, these drums aren't working for me. Blah blah. I couldn't hear anything wrong with them. They sounded fine. But again, the drums are the first thing. So until they're right, he couldn't. You wouldn't really do much else until the problems were corrected. And time was eating away, and it was. What studio costs are. It was just eating away at the budget. And the money was just running out. Then Andy decided, we'd finished at Chipping Norton, we were going to go back to Hayden Bendel's workshop to do some overdubs and vocals. At which point Andy decided he was going to take a holiday. He was going to take a couple of weeks off, go and spend some time in New York with his girlfriend. And I thought, no, this is... all right, we'll carry on while you're gone. But just remember, time's a ticking, and the money's trickling away. So we finished basically Colin Moulding's songs, got them done in a few days, vocals, everything finished. And so eventually Andy came back. He'd lost his voice, he had a throat infection, so he couldn't sing. But it didn't. But then, it was kind of the criticisms all starting. He started criticising the work that we'd done on Colin's songs. He didn't like this. He didn't like that. And then he announced that he'd been having discussions with an American record company who had agreed to release some money so we could mix the album for release in the States. And I thought, well, who's this company then? I won't tell you who they were, but I made some inquiries. I just phoned around, what do you reckon to this company? Phoned some American friends, a couple of artists and a producer who'd had involvement with this company, and it was just like the worst possible reaction from people, It was just like, the words had barely left my lips. One guy I spoke to, "You will not be paid." Those were the 4 words I remember. And I thought, this is just to have such, from a couple of artists as well who'd been signed. And I said to Andy, look, this is just madness. You might get the money to mix the album, but you're not getting anything out. But he was determined to do it. I said, well, I'm not signing that document. I'm sure there's other companies we could approach, but this one is bad news. But he wouldn't listen. So I said, well, I think I'm just in the way here, my opinion really isn't important anymore. You have obviously no intention of listening to anything I've got to say anymore. So I think it's best for all of us if I go. And he thought I was calling his bluff. But really, you know, the resentment had been building, you know, for over the, you know, several months. And, you know, the fact that we'd all waited 7 years to make this record, and suddenly we were being forced into doing what amounted to me to be Andy's solo record. And he'll probably tell you that they're all his solo records. You know, that was kind of where his ego was at the time. But this was something else, and I wasn't comfortable, and I thought I'd be doing everybody a favour by going. Apart from anything else, I could see bankruptcy looming, because he'd spent all the money, this really generous advance, and we hadn't even got to the mixing stage. Admittedly, a lot of money had been frittered away needlessly, all spent in the cause of the record. There was no recreational expenditure on the band's members' part. It was all just irresponsible spending on the record. So that was basically, it was a combination of money, but more about attitudes, lack of respect, and just, well, you know, asking what the hell I was doing here, you know. So that was really how it all ended.